Ladies and gentlemen, I need your help now, please. I'm sure you've all got your phone with you. I'd like you to grab your phone right now. Come on, you're allowed to get your phone out. It's quite unusual. I need you to grab your phone, go onto your browser, and I want you to go onto menti.com. We need your help in answering one question. That's it. So go to menti.com. You will be prompted to enter a code. Again, that's up on the screen here, 721176. No pressure, but it does tell us how many results we've got coming in, so I am going to look to you. Here is the one question I need you to answer. What are some of the key challenges you face in providing excellent service? And in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see a number there, so that's going to tell us how many people have responded. There's three responses we're looking for you to give. So menti.com, M-I-N-T-I. Right, well, there's our first word, communication from one person. Let's get those numbers up. We've only had one response so far. I see you all on your phones. Interesting. So just so you know, with the word cloud, the largest word that you see on screen here is the most common word that we have got in these live responses from you right here. So 15, we're on 15 responses, still looking. We've got a room of about 150 probably. So let's get as many responses as possible. How interesting is that? The word communication hasn't left the word cloud. So let's try and get as many responses as we can before we move on. Does anybody need any help with the website? Everyone good? Did you do it, this table? Just checking. Did you do it, this table? These ladies look like they know what they're doing. Yes, okay, good. Oh, we're nearly at 50 responses. Still communication, the biggest word that's coming up in these responses. Some great numbers. Good, here they come. Right, please continue to go to answer that question. Keep that on your phone because a little bit later we'll be doing one more question from Menti. But certainly do, for the next sort of 5 minutes or so, do keep that open and think about those responses. That's fantastic. Communication, I can see everybody's faces in the room. You're all nodding. Communication seems to be a big, big deal. Culture and people. Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. Keep those responses coming in if you're still doing that. We are now going to move on to this evening's panel. Now, this evening's panel members include His Excellency, Dr. Khaled Mahdi. Before I welcome him onto the stage, I'll just give you a quick introduction. Now, Dr. Khaled is currently serving as the Secretary General of the Supreme Council for Planning and Development and is the National Director of the Country Programme Action Plan with UNDP in the Government of Kuwait. He leads the national efforts to implement the SDG Agenda 2035 and has received the People First Leader GCC HR Award. That was last year in 2018. Dr. Khaled was the Assistant Secretary General for the Follow-up and Future Forecasting, a board member of the Public Authority for Civil Information, Kuwait Master Plan 2040 Committee, and the Economic and Fiscal Reform Monitoring Committee. And finally, Dr. Khaled has authored or co-authored more than 65 journal articles, book chapters, conference papers, a patent, and a book in several different fields. Please welcome him onto the stage, His Excellency Dr. Khaled Mahdi. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Our second panel member this evening is Salah Al-Fulaij. He is the Chief Executive Officer for Kuwait for the National Bank of Kuwait. Mr. Al-Fulaij joined the bank in 1985 and was appointed Chief Executive Officer for Kuwait in January 2015. He was previously the CEO of NBK Capital from 2007. He serves on the board of NBK Capital and Watani Financial Brokerage Company. Prior to joining NBK Capital, Mr. Al-Fulaij held several key positions at the bank, and his last position was Group General Manager of Treasury and Investment Services. Mr. Al-Fulaij is a graduate of the University of Miami, where he received his bachelor's degree in industrial engineering and his MBA in business management. He has participated in several executive programs at Harvard Business School, Stanford Graduate School of Business, and Duke University. Please welcome him, Salah Al-Fulaij. And of course, our president of Service Hero, Faten Abu-Ghazaleh. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel.
So I'm really honored to be with you two gentlemen. And I think I'm going to start with the government sector, because it's newer to us. And maybe Dr. Khaled, I know that for those of you who are familiar enough, that the Kuwait 2035 New Kuwait Development Plan has 7 pillars in it. And these pillars vary different areas from the environment, human capital, infrastructure, healthcare. So I'm not going to go through the pillars, but I'd like to maybe begin with asking you, which one of these pillars does excellence fall under? And how do you see that fitting under that pillar?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let me start with thanks and gratitude to Mrs. Faten Abu-Ghazaleh. I was honored to receive her in my office, and she was telling me something about Service Hero, which I heard about it when I was working for the private sector. But I wasn't in the retail business, so at that time, it was quite impressive for me to have some idea about it. But when she came in to my office discussing about how the national or Kuwait National Development Plan and the implementation of the plan, one of the main issue I have is what you actually stated in your presentation, that we already have our Kuwait National Development Plan eaten for breakfast due to the culture. This is an issue. It's a deep-rooted issue for people in the public sector and the government to move from what we call process regulation-oriented to civic-centered, to customer-centered, and to look at the transaction done by the government to enable the private sector, which is outline and overarch the vision of Kuwait 2035, which state the private sector leadership of the economy. Now, which of these pillars fit of what you mentioned is the effective public administration pillar, which fits very well into the framework of the Service Hero Award because it addresses the effectiveness of the services provided by the government. The issue now in the Kuwait National Development Plan of the Kuwait Vision 2035 is to move from what we call the operation role of the government. Currently, the government operates 90% of the economic activities. It regulates, it monitors, it actually dominates the whole economy of the country, except maybe for a very small percentage, to a more of an agile government, supporting government, to the private sector, to let the private sector operate the actual economy and stick to their enabling regulation and to the policy making. So the public administration, what I call the effective public administration, which underline the ease of doing business, the anti-corruption practices, the competitiveness protection, the governance ensurement in the financial sector. These are supposedly the real role of the government. What we are pushing for in the Kuwait National Development Plan is to move the governmental processes to be civic-centered, meaning to be customer-centered, and to keep the role actually in the enabling mechanism to let others do their work and to mobilize the economy in a much better way. The reason that we have the current, let me put it in a very nice political way, the current staggered, hindered system in the government is basically due to the domination of the public sector, which comes from the rentier state concept.
Yeah.
It's a rentier economy at the end of the day, and leaving the rentier economy and depart from the rentier economy to more productive economy takes a quantum leap in one aspect, but it can be done with one fluctuation, which is a very important one, to move the actual processes to customer-oriented. In the meantime, currently, it is not customer-centered. It is actually process and regulation-centered. Actually, in some cases, it is anti-customer-centered. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that was the government. Do you feel, first, I wanted to ask you a question about organizational culture. Do you feel it is also eaten for breakfast by strategy, or the opposite? I said it all wrong.
Well, of course, it has to be. It has to be done that way, and for the private sector, or if I say the bank, and if I go specifically MBK, I mean, this is, when we say customer is at the center of the attention, and we, for everything that we do, every idea that we come up with, product or service, it's always around the customer and customer needs, and how to not just service, but give solution to the customer. Because without that, really, there will be no success. So it is, and strategy is a major, and understanding the strategy by everybody in the organization, the culture of the organization, and the culture has to be customer-centric. Then one of the major things is enabling the staff to deliver that customer service. I could sit there and tell any staff member, oh, you've got to be good and you've got to be serviced. But if that customer, if that staff member is not given and not enabled, you can train, but training, I could give you, so for example, product training, and you will grab some of it. I'll give you service or new, let's say, characteristics of a service, or even rewards, for example, for a certain products that you can give to the client. I'll show it to you, I'll give you a memo, I'll sit and explain it, and a month later, probably 50% would forget about it. So how do you need to keep it, you need to really enable them. I mean, that's one of the things that we witnessed, that we struggled with at the bank, was product knowledge and things like that. So ideas that came from the staff themselves and from things they do at home and play. For example, I mean, everybody, and I think everybody knows a game, Trivial Pursuit, and that, where, you know, you have a card, you ask, and this, and we have it actually, you know, I've got a deck of cards here, that's MBK cards. What happened is at the branch.
MBK Trivial Pursuit?
MBK's Trivial Pursuit. And what happened, and during the morning huddle or something, the branch manager or any unit will sit, gather everybody, and then give out the cards, and then you ask the person in front of you. And the question is there, the answer is here.
How often does this happen?
Depending on the branch manager. The huddle is every morning.
Okay.
and you can use this. And there are other means. There is sometimes, you don't want to do this every day because people will start getting bored. So some came up with the idea of Family Feud, for example, and split the team into two and ask questions, and then they answer. So this is the enablement.
Yeah,
I mean, you
in a
give them
fun
the
way.
enablement, you build in the culture of service, you put a strategy that everybody knows about it and everybody believes in it, then everything will fall in place.
So I want to ask you about KPIs and then ask Dr. Mahdi the same question. So what KPIs are you following today that make sure that you don't veer away from service excellence? How important is the KPI for service excellence in your scorecards or whatever it is that you're tracking?
Very much, very much. I mean, you've got, for example, we do a lot of, say, market research. And for example, if I say in 2018, over 47,000 people were asked questions and surveyed, either digitally, by phone, or face-to-face. We have over 25,000 mystery shoppers within the physical branches.
Those are big numbers.
Yeah, and over 60,000 to the contact center, the call center. Then these are mystery shoppers that call. I mean, that way, and this is how we, every staff member has got to always be on alert and always give the best service possible. One thing that we developed in 2012 was a program that we call it I Am MBK. Now imagine you go anywhere. You call a place or you go visit a shop and you say, oh, excuse me, can you help me with this? Or why is this? Or you complain. And the answer you get, oh, well, it's not us. It's not me. It's that other department. Oh, it's operations. Oh, it's that. I always, whenever I get this, I always just say, the hell you are not. You are the institution. I'm not talking to you personally. I'm talking to an institution. And in order to avoid that, at MBK, we call an I Am MBK program where if a client comes in asking, I will never say, well, it's not me, go to corporate or go to operation. No, I will solve your problem right away, right there, by calling the right person, because I know them better than you as the client. And then how do I reward people? Not by the manager walking by and saying, pat in the back and saying, go, good job. No, your colleagues around you are the ones nominating you. And a colleague will nominate for 8 different categories, being, some of them is, communication, being there, empathy, and the likes. Nominates you, it goes to a committee, and the committee looks at everything, filters them, selects a few that says, yes, these are an I Am MBK characters, send it to the manager saying, your staff such and such has been nominated by one of his colleagues. Yes, it's approved. You're given a first time celebrated at the branch. The head of HR, the GM of that area comes in. You're given the first time, you're given a pin. No financial rewards, 0. But just that keeps people proud, and people walk around wearing it.
Yeah.
And then you do more stuff and you get nominated again, you get a certificate, and you get to a higher level reward that is given by more than just within the branch.
Yeah.
You get to the 3rd, you go to the executive floor, and you're given by the group CEO. I mean the 3rd. You get to the 4th, you get a trophy, and that's given in the annual in front of everybody at the bank. And this is just the ultimate, and no financial. It's
You're
not
just
always.
recognizing,
It's not always
Yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah, it's
It's
recognition.
sometimes
Yeah,
it's
we see you.
recognition, and you are a role model for
Yeah.
everybody.
So I'm listening to you and I'm imagining you can't do I am حكومة. What could you do? and also KPIs. So if you were going to introduce KPIs, I don't think you have KPIs for excellence yet. So I think that they're going to be developed, but how would they fit in?
When I'm listening to Mr. Salah, it's music to my ear. You are living in heaven, my dear.
It took a struggle to be
I
here.
know,
You know?
I know.
It's not overnight.
I know it's not an overnight, it's a very long process. But now you are definitely reaping the fruit of what you were doing.
That's true.
Now, one thing about me, I've been in 3 different worlds. The first one is the academia, second the private sector, and the other now currently in the government sector. 3 different languages, different culture, different and a different mindset, different, the same people, but they behave differently based on the environment. When I'm in academia, it's very obvious what will be the KPIs about your research productivity, your engagement with the community. There are a set of KPI which are very well known worldwide. There are indices you can measure against.
Yeah.
When I move to the private sector, it's also the same. There are KPIs that you can set, starting from whether the financial, organizational, the leadership, customer-oriented, all of these very nice, lovely KPI that you can actually use in the performance measurement and performance evaluation. Now, moving to the government sector, I think it's different.
Yes.
I'm not saying it's more challenging, or it's a different word that we need to really understand what moves things in the government. The outsider think of the government as being only motivated by politics and by what you call it, forces of politics. But there are other things in the government inside this very interesting elephant. Why I'm saying elephant? Because most of the population in Kuwait, they are actually employed in the government as a part of wealth distribution. And needless to say, it's a rentier state. And this is how our wealth distribution is done, through public employment.
Yeah.
So now we understand what we are dealing with. Now let's get in how we let this elephant move. In fact, number 1, when you are overstaffed in any organization, your productivity of the organization goes down. This is normal. Any organization, if you have above the criticality that you need, number of staff, you will be experiencing a drop in the productivity. The question is, how do we measure the concept of productivity? There is an official one, unofficial one. Unofficial one, it is being done by our creation inside my own organization currently, the General Secretariat of Planning. Now, officially, the Civil Commission came up with their own KPIs. Very interesting. People who used to work in the government, I have none here except me, so I look odd. The interesting...
We're not a hostile audience.
Well, hostility is welcome in the government, isn't it? So one of the KPI is, how do you look? Rate from 0 to 10. Second thing, do you actually come to the work as early as blah, blah, blah?
On time,
Are you good with the safety and security rules in the place? Is he damaging or not the environment of the workplace? Is he collaborating or is she cooperating well? These KPIs are very, not just subjective, they are purely, I call it sarcastic and cynical. This is why I don't spend too much time trying to play around with these performance measures. Now, let me go back. Let me explain some of the KPIs I use. All my KPIs are measured by third-party assessment. I'm glad that Mr. Salah mentioned mystery shopper. I have my own mystery shoppers as well. It's very unusual to be done in the government, but I do that. And actually, it points to me the talents inside this government body. Headhunting within the organization. I run psychometric testing every 2 years. A very independent psychometric test. Try to get some flavor of what I have, what evolved. There is an evolution comes in through some enabling program. The third one, some of the KPIs as well, I use through what I call the mentoring and the coaching process. In the government, direct training is inefficient, ineffective. Workshops are ineffective in general, on average. And we measure that by the feedback we receive, whether from the people or whether from the instructor as well, assessment. Number 3, coaching, mentoring, I tried, is ineffective as well, very minimal effect. The only mechanic which I found very effective is role model. Role model is the most effective practice, technique I used, and it seemed to work very well within this government organization. For some reason, people who live in the government culture, they tend to have contagious behavior. Yeah. And that's part of what we call social conforming. People like to do what others are doing simply because they don't want to be outcasted from the major culture. Another thing is people tend to put down others who are productive simply because they will not be asked to work. Some of these practices also shared in the private sector. I'm not saying only the government, but in the government I saw it even in more.
Yeah, contagious behavior is everywhere.
Contagious behavior is everywhere, but in the government it multiplies. It has, let me put it this way, I have a very interesting term, a very high degree of parasite infection. So they go in a much bigger and a higher rate than any other organization. And I think because of the overstaffing of it.
Yes, that's true.
So some of these KPI, and this is why when we had our meeting at the beginning, I told you, we need to set something on the service. Although my organization, which is planning, we provide services to the Supreme Council of Planning, those are my customer, and the Council of Ministers. These are my other customer. And the public, which is definitely not the main customer, but out of integrity and respect, I have to show transparency by providing all the report. In 2016, I started in the office. The number of reports out since that time, they reached more than 700 reports. Used to be buried somewhere. We get them out all on the website. To my surprise, they were almost daily. We have downloading of these reports. Some of them are really old, but we get them out. Also, in every single publication we have, once it gets approved, we shoot it to the internet for the public display. And unfortunately, some people use it against us. This is very interesting. We like to show the numbers. We show the KPI. And people actually, they take it and say, you know what? These are the KPI, and the minister gets grilled because of that. Well, there is a price for transparency. However, because our mandate is planning, not implementation, and the curse of planning, you will be the one carrying out the misery and the pain of everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, a little joke in this nice evening. I've been called by one of the citizens of Kuwait, asking me, you have to pay 25 KD for the changing of my window glass of the car. I said, why? He said, I get hit by a stone, and it is due to the poor planning in the country, I get my window shield smashed. I said, well, I will be paying you the 25, but not because I'm carrying the responsibility, but because you are a citizen accusing me of false accusation. Allah ysamhak. The idea is strategic planning is one issue, implementation and follow-up is another. Our job is to tell what is going on and to show it. Now, there are some defects of the show of KPI. 2017, we changed all the KPI from local national KPI to WEF KPIs.
WEF.
Which is the World Economic Forum. So I'm using competitiveness as a third party. I mean, this is a trait I learned from the private sector. You cannot audit your own financial statement. Yeah. You need a third party auditor, which is very simple. Then we need to bring you, we bring the WEF, we bring other KPIs to be the measure of the performance. And if you notice in the last 2 years, a lot being said about the competitiveness and more on the international KPI and how much ministers are looking forward to improve the KPIs because we distributed the KPI among the ministers. Yeah. And this is why you see some sort of ownership. It's not an easy culture to start with, but we believe we managed to turn on. I cannot claim perfectly, but we turned on, we ignite the concept of KPI within the Kuwait National Development Plan.
That's excellent. You mentioned something I want to ask Salah about. He mentioned technology and the internet, and I know that people are doing a lot more self-service, using apps, etc. Can you talk about how technology has affected your definition of service excellence?
Okay.
And then innovation as well, both, Yani.
Well, okay. A client, whether for a bank or anywhere else, no longer really selects the bank because of the branch is next to my house, the staff are friendly, it looks clean and all of that. No, the products are becoming generic most of the time. Now there is a very, very strong category, which is ease of doing business. The millennials or the younger people and are more into, I want to do things not whenever I want to do my transaction, not whenever you tell me. I don't have to be there between 8 and 2 o'clock. No, I want to do it in the afternoon. I want to do it at night, at 10 o'clock at night. I want to do my transfer. I want to do all my transactions then, by all means. It's right there. This is where service has got to go and use technology and digital. Now, having said that, we should not go 180 degrees and just go totally digital. That personal touch should always be there. There are other things that a customer needs solutions. A customer needs help with managing their life, managing their future, managing the future of their children. So that branch should be a service and a solution provider, not a transaction. Transactions now are done on the mobile. The exponential number of transactions going on the mobile are far, far more than what it used to be. The clients within the branch are there. Mostly are profitable clients that you would see in the branch. Clients who will do an investment, who will do a loan or something, although due to regulatory concerns, we have to, or constraints, we have to have the customer there. We could do it, I mean, really, we should be able to do it at your convenience, at home. You do everything electronically, and you got your money in the account. But there are some regulatory constraints that will limit us. So yes, and one more thing is you'll see a lot of services or things that are offered in technology that in reality they're bells and whistles. They don't really
That's true.
add any value. So how do you choose? You choose by doing market research. You choose by listening to your clients and saying, well, all right. You choose by thinking like a young person when he looks at something and says, I need to solve that problem. There is a problem and I need to solve it. I need to get from A to B, and I need to get it in a straight line rather than currently I'm doing 3 or 4 dots before I reach my end. No, I need to go a straight line. And that's how all the fintechs are coming and all the apps are being
Correct.
produced. This is what you need to give. Yeah, there are things that are used for marketing. It's fine, but it's, it's lovely, but then immediately it loses its glory. I think that, technology is, for example, when you do your market research, you're looking at customer service and you're always thinking of either the person or you're thinking of, say, the contact center. But now it's very, very important to also look at how are transactions being conducted.
Where are they conducted?
Are they being electronically and fast and easy to use?
Actually, our index, around 70% of the traffic is done on a phone.
Right.
Not even on a laptop, not even on a computer. So we know how reliant people are. We have just a couple more minutes. So the last question to the two of you is, as a leader, how can you inspire your teams and make it very clear what the direction is? I mean, when we did the Menti question, it was about communication. So how can you, as a leader, do this communication so everyone gets the message?
Go ahead.
احنا دائما نقول قطاع الخاص أول. There are a lot of techniques. I mean, my way of doing things, I'm using a very basic theory, honestly. It's the XYZ theory.
Okay.
So people I'm dealing with, if they are from the X type, they have their own way to lead them. So my leading tactic or my influencing tactic is different if it's a Y and Z. Now if you are all familiar with the XYZ, but let me just brief, well, maybe some people, they never heard about it. An ex-employee or an ex-follower is a type of follower who require constant supervision and constant nagging. So if you just close your eyes, this X will not be operating in the direction of what you want. The Y is a professional. You need to give a room to facilitate. The Z is quite loyal. You just let the loyal, they are basically some workaholic people, which you don't have much to empower. They are already self-empowered and implicit. Now, once I have this classification, my influencing tactic follow.
You adopt.
I adopt. Yeah. I believe in situational leadership. Sometimes I let my employee lead. I take the back seat. I'm a facilitator at the end of the day. Some of them, they cannot operate this way. You need to be very aggressively authoritarian, military style. I don't like the military style, but I need it. The Z employee, they are leader by nature. I need just to create more and more of these people because they will be the second in line. Also, a leader is not a leader if you do not create leaders.
Yeah.
This is how I believe in it.
So you're adopting, Salah.
No, I do totally agree with communication because you notice it that when you sit with people and people, if they don't see the leader and if you don't become a role model and really communicate, people will say, well, all right, they're in their offices upstairs. We don't even know what they look like. We may see them once a year in the annual gathering, but that's all. No, you got to communicate. You got to have, you got to meet with the staff and clients. You really have to have the time to meet with everybody. One thing that I believe in, and you notice when you say, well, okay, I'll sit in a room with this group, and this group could be 40 people, and start talking to them, or even 40 people, or even 4 people, and you say, okay, tell me, what are your problems, what things, what you have suggestions. Believe me, you will only get maybe 50%.
Yeah.
And some people talk, a lot of people don't. So we came up with, in what we call the town halls, in a box that is put next, one next to, excuse me, Karam Sami, next to the ladies' room, one next to the men's room, because that's where everybody goes. And it's placed before the town hall, say a couple of weeks before, and everybody gets the news that this box is there. All you have to do is put your question, your comment, and everything, type it up on your computer, print it out, fold it, throw it in the box. You can say anything you want. You can say any comment, any suggestion, and believe it, and we have to do it. I gotta answer every question that's there.
You're giving them a
and
voice.
Every comment has got to be answered, and got to be answered with transparency. I have to answer it, not to say, oh yeah, all right, because there are some questions, and a lot of them are HR-related questions. We need more money. Can we be late for half an hour and that? But you have to say, right then and there, yes, this is a good suggestion, that we will adopt it. We will think about it and come back to you, and be sure to come back to them. Or, sorry, but this doesn't work. Especially coming late, because to me, it's, being on time is a discipline. It's not, even if you stay late, but that's your responsibility to stay late. Yeah. And that is where you have to communicate. You gotta be there. You gotta allow people to communicate to you, because sometimes it's just frustrations.
Yeah.
And be a role model. Just be there in front of people.
So very different management styles, both very effective, though, I'm sure. So that's all we have time. That really happy to have heard from you about culture, about KPIs, and about the challenges of creating a culture of excellence in two very different mindsets, government and then private sector. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you.